This Saturday, May 30th, it's always a pleasure for me having Sam FADDIS and Patricia ONWUKA on together. You know, history, Sam and Patrice, teaches that wars with Iran are never simple, quick, or clean. Persia has survived empires, invasions, sanctions, revolutions, and isolations for thousands of years because its leadership understands patience, endurance, and nationalism. What happens next will likely be a dangerous cycle of pressure, retaliation, negotiation, and temporary pauses, and not immediate peace for unconditional surrender. America and Israel possesses overwhelming military power. No one will argue with that. But guess what? Iran possesses time, geography, proxies, energy leverage, and a willingness to absorb suffering and loss. And I will tell you both that wisdom reminds us that wars often begin with confidence and end with exhaustion. So the greatest victories, America, in history are not always won by those who strikes hardest and loudest, but by who understands limits, consequences, and when diplomacy must eventually replace escalation. And so the Middle East, Sam, and I'll start with you, has humbled many empires along the way.
Yeah, well, look, the first thing that the takeaway I have for the Iran war at this point is technology, military competence, all of that, which nobody questions, is no substitute for strategy and for an understanding of the situation and having a clear idea of how you intend to win and what that victory looks like. We went into this, thought this thing was going to be a cakewalk, be over in a matter of days. It is still unclear to me who had that fantasy exactly, but it was obviously not true. And honestly, we're still fumbling around trying to figure out what we're doing next. I mean, we have blockaded the straits. Alone, that is not enough to produce victory anytime soon. And as you well know, look, I on record as having not recommended we begin this war in the first place, certainly not prosecute the way we did, but now we are in it. And the consequences of losing in the Middle East, being perceived as having lost, are in my mind unthinkable, because I don't care what press release the White House puts out. If you sign a bad deal and walk away, everybody will know what just happened, and we will pay the price for that.
And so, ONWUKA, what is a bad deal that we should never sign?
Well, a bad deal is Iran being able to retain any of their nuclear material, their nuclear capabilities, their ability to build back up within a year, 2 years or less, their nuclear capabilities. I think that is really the biggest crux of the negotiations. Iran, obviously, they want to continue to keep or have in the back pocket their ability to once again become a nuclear power. And that's a non-starter for the United States, as well as it should be. I mean, given the reports that we understand preceded our, entering into this war, was just how close Iran was to being able to, formalize their nuclear program to the point where they could hit both Europe, but also potentially the United States with devastating weapons. That's a significant and imminent threat. And I think realistically, President Trump and the administration cannot walk away without that threat having been eliminated entirely. Anything short of that is going to be looked upon as, the Obama-Iran deal, which delivered pallets of cash to a regime that simply used that not to feed its people, but to feed its nuclear ambitions.
You know, Sam, another sticky point is that the United States is going to have to pay some money. You call it reparations, you call it unfreezing assets. There's money on the table. It gets real ugly because the last thing this administration wants to reveal is that they had to pay a lot of money to Iran to bring them to the negotiating table to sign a fragile deal.
Yeah, well, it'll be perceived as ransom. And quite frankly, that's what it will be. I mean, let's just be blunt. So if we fight this whole war, and in the end, we're getting nothing but going back to the status quo pre-war, but we're paying the Iranians to give us that. Again, I don't care what press release the White House puts out and how they want to spin that. The whole world will see. Frankly, everybody inside the United States will see what just happened. And bootstrapping on Patricia's comment, look, I'm all about the nuclear weapons program being the heart of anything we're doing with the Iranians. And having worked that target for many years, all their claims that they are playing around with centrifuges and enriching uranium to the level you need for atomic bombs, all their claims that it's for some other purpose are
Lies.
absurd.
Lies.
They're lies.
Yes.
I don't mind when people lie to me, having been a spy and been lied to a lot. I mind stupid lies, and that's a stupid lie. That's an insult to my intelligence.
So, Patricia, the important question is, as Sam stated, he doesn't understand where the president became sort of delusional in believing that this would be a quick in and out. Did Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu mislead or manipulate President Trump in convincing him to be a part of this attack on Iran?
Well, I mean, we've certainly heard that narrative. I don't know if that's 100% true. Certainly, they have a good, close relationship, and Israel has a lot of influence over the United States. And it's not lost on me that during the president's meeting with his cabinet this week, he referenced the Abraham Accords as part of kind of this entire deal, which was a little bit out of left field for everyone.
Well, we know where it's coming from, though.
Well, and certainly Israel is a part of that. You know, is Israel the reason why we're in Iran right now? I don't know, maybe. But that said, you know, I mean, I think it's important that the United States continues it saw an opportunity to potentially eliminate a threat, and it took it. Now, you know, we've seen the military aspect of it. To my colleague's point here, I think that shock and awe that we saw in the first few weeks was impressive and certainly was a good message to the rest of the world at the capabilities the United States has. The next step is from a diplomatic perspective. You see Secretary Rubio saying, not taking off the table, more shock and awe. And I think that's important. The diplomacy is trying to win out right now, but the fact that the United States keeps decapitating every new leader and every negotiator that Iran has, you know, at some point you figure, okay, negotiations are probably going to fall through. So how impressive, how much more firepower are we going to bring to the table to bring this to an end? And I actually think we're probably moving away from like a deal per se, and more probably towards something more military driven.
You know, Sam, an Ebola outbreak is not just a regional health concern. It is a reminder of how fragile global public health systems remain in an interconnected world. Now, when I read someone saying they came straight to the United States from that part of the world, and there were no Ebola tests, no provisions in place, I kind of was shaking in my shoes. I mean, Ebola moves with fear because history remembers its deadly consequences and how it overwhelmed hospitals, terrified communities, and the extraordinary courage of doctors, nurses, and missionaries, and the workers who stood between civilization and chaos. Should we take this outbreak much more serious than we are?
Without question, we should. And look, here's the horrible truth about Ebola. The reason why it has not spread worldwide in the past is because it is so horrifying and acts so quickly that it kills the people it infects before they have a chance to jump on airplanes and move around and spread it like many other diseases. That's the horrifying good news, I guess, about controlling Ebola. But there's nothing that says that the thing doesn't morph, because these diseases mutate and takes a little bit longer to kill people and effectively jumps the fence. one of the big fallouts from one big effect of the way we mishandled COVID, of course, is that there really are diseases out there we should be terrified of, but now nobody trusts public health and the government enough to abide by the measures. I mean, that has always been one of the real dangers. Okay, next time when the boy is not crying, you know, making it up, when he's crying wolf and this time it's for real, we're going to say, no, I mean, you're not succoring me again, and then we're going to find out we're in trouble.
You know, Patricia, at least for now, a federal judge has allowed the Trump administration to begin implementing stricter federal oversight measures tied to mail-in voting and voting eligibility verification while legal challenges continue. Now, the largest significance is political, constitutional, and practical, and it reflects a continuing national battle over election integrity versus voter access. Now, some argue, the supporters, that the measures are designed to strengthen public confidence in elections by ensuring only eligible citizens vote and by tightening the chain of custody procedures surrounding mail ballots. Now, the critics will tell you the rule could create new barriers for lawful voters, especially elderly voters, military voters overseas, and lower income communities. I don't see why anybody could make an argument that you should not have an ID presented in order to vote. Your thoughts?
I don't see that there's any argument to that at all. What's funny is I live in Maryland and I served as an election judge, one of those people who registers and checks people in to vote on voting day, and I've seen the process from start to finish. And the fact is I live in a blue state where you do not have to present ID, and theoretically someone could show up as Patrice Lee or Patrice ONWUKA on the day of the election and come up to my table and say, I'm Patrice Lee. And I would, I mean, the funny thing is, if they have enough data, which is simply just my name and my address, you could check yourself in, get a ballot, and go and vote. And so I think it's important, and I'm glad that the Supreme Court is making room for the fact that we do want to ensure that our elections are secure and safe. That provides regular voters with the confidence to know that that someone has not voted in their place, or that the elections are truly had fairly. Now, the opposition will say, oh, well, very little fraud happens in our elections. Whether it's minuscule or whether it's massive, it should not be there. And the federal government, state governments in particular, should be doing every effort they can to ensure that there is at no fraud, or as little fraud as possible. Now, to those who think that, I think that it's a red herring to say, oh, if you're black, or if you're low income, or you're a woman, or you're an old person, you don't have ID, you can't register. I mean, it's very obvious the list of things that you need an ID to do, including to get on an airplane right now, to get into, to buy some alcohol at the liquor store. I mean, the list goes on. To even apply for the welfare, the social safety net benefits that many people participate in, you still need to be able to prove that you are who you are, and that depends on having some identification. So that's a false narrative meant to stir people's emotions, but it's not logical. And when people think about it, they will pull out their ID in your face and show you they have one.
Sam, I got to tell you this. A DOJ and FBI charges against David Rush, his former CIA operative, $40 million worth of gold bars, 30 Rolex watches, $2 million in cash. I mean, was he as part of the CIA? Was he a government employee? How was he appointed? How could they not be aware that he was using this money for himself, and to go find this in his home and now indict him? What are we missing here?
Well, first of all, I'd just like to make clear that apparently Mr. Roth was being paid on a different pay scale than I was when I was with CIA.
For sure.
Because I don't have more than 1 or 2 gold bars lying around my office. But look, when I read this story, I said to my wife, also a retired case officer, this is one of those stories when you hear it in the field that you think, all right, there's something missing here. This is not... Like, I don't know what the whole story is, but I know that's not the whole story. Clearly, there is an aspect here where the man's rendition of his background was fraudulent. So he claimed to have done all sorts of things that he never did. Well, you know, you're supposed to go through some pretty rigorous background checks to have a top secret clearance. So somebody has some explaining to do about where the heck they've been. And he's apparently been around for a while, which means he would have been reinvestigated multiple times. And then there's this whole question of why this guy has, you know, stacks of gold bars and Rolex watches in his apartment and where that comes from. I don't know the answer. At this point, the only theory I have is that he was conducting an operation, which had to be one heck of an op, where all of that stuff was supposed to be going to sources that were providing us with intelligence, and that instead he was just keeping that stuff and stacking it up. Now, that has happened in the past, in my experience, with case officers who ultimately lost their jobs and were prosecuted. But on nothing like this scale, I can tell you. I mean, a guy claims he recruited an asset who never existed, and every month he claims he handed him $1,000, and it turns out he's putting it in his pocket. Again, those guys have ended up in prison, but that's chicken feed compared to this. So I am actively digging into it, and I will report to you on what I find.
Thank you. Patricia, Sam, thank you both so much for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you on. When we return, General Terrence Adams will join us to talk about cyber, the military, and so much more. I'm Armstrong Williams. We'll be back. You know, my very dear friend, Jan Adams, who spent over 25 years in the military, has been talking about General Terrence Adams for a long time and saying that we should have him on. He was the Deputy Principal Cyber Advisor to the Secretary of Defense and Senior Military Advisor for Cyber Policy. And he's celebrating 39 years of service in the United States Army and Air Force. And let me just first thank you for your service. Why now did you decide, especially when they need you now more than ever, did you decide to step down?
Just opportunity. You know, I think a lot of people have been presenting a lot of opportunity. Talking to my mom as she gets older, I have given a lot to the nation, and now I want to focus on giving back to my family and then back to my community.
Listen, there are so many stories about the military, about under this administration, the opportunities, the appreciation. Talk about what we've heard in the narratives that are out there.
Yeah, so I think there's always a danger in a single narrative. I think that when we get down to understanding truth about what people's intentions are in policy, I think you find that there's a lot of opportunity for the nation. So I get an opportunity to talk to a lot of Americans, you know, around the globe, and what I found is that those folks still want to serve, that cyber is an opportunity for them, and there's some rural community that we have, that there's a budding person that doesn't know they could be great in cyber, and that's what my goal is try to find that talent that's out there, bring that talent to the military.
And listen, I have my issues with affirmative action, DEI, and set-asides. You get these roles because of your merit, your service when you have 39 years. And the fact is, people talk about DEI being rolled back. Is it overblown that when it's saying that it's going to affect minorities and women?
Yeah, I haven't, I'm not in on understanding all the policy and where we are with DEI. What I would tell you is that the people who I serve with each and every day, the people who I know, very talented individuals. You know, they've been groomed to be successful. They have the right jobs at the right time. We do a great job of trying to put people in the right positions at the right time.
So what inspired you, first of all, to dedicate almost 40 years of your life serving the United States military? And how did that calling shape the man you became?
Now that is a great question. So I started this journey straight out of high school, Tuskegee Institute High School. I enlisted in the Army as a cook. I came in as an E1, you know, at the bottom, you know, of the structure. I did that to get the GI Bill and the college fund to go to school. I didn't want my mom to continue to work, you know, multiple jobs, and so doing so, I came in for one reason, but I stayed for another. You know, I stayed for the camaraderie, the people, you know, the opportunity. The military kept pouring into me. I met a lot of wonderful people that poured a lot of effort into me. And then it gave me an opportunity as I became senior to give that back. So I stayed to continue to give that back. And some people will probably say I stayed too long, but I love serving. It's been a foundational part of my life. And now that I'm looking at this retirement, I'm figuring out, like, what do I want to do? Because there's just a lot of opportunity now. But I love serving. It was a unique opportunity for me.
Let's talk about, from your perspective, what is the current morale within the military, and what challenges today would you say servicemen and women face, and that many Americans may not fully understand and appreciate?
Yeah, I haven't taken a survey or a poll to try to see where people are as far as their morale. The people who I serve around, I can tell you about that, you know, are still highly motivated. You know, they're still making sure that we're doing the best that we can. We're organized and training and equipping men and women around the nation to serve. And so that standpoint, that's been my experience. I'm sure there's other people who have different experiences about their service, but there are people who are still staying to serve. There are gonna be people who serve longer than Terrence Adams for 39 years. And for me, coming from Tuskegee, Alabama, the Tuskegee Airmen, that foundation, while I'm not a Tuskegee Airman, but I am an airman from Tuskegee, I get to see through the lens that's different, through the lens of sacrifice to the nation for 39 years. And for that lens, it says that America is still strong.
So what is it that the country, the educational system, parenting, communities prepared you for 39 years ago that is going to be very difficult for this generation today, that those systems are no longer in place or have been severely diminished?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I came in I was born '69, you know, Vietnam was still, you know, going on. There were a lot of people who served in Vietnam that still had, you know, parents and grandparents that were in World War I and World War II. So they saw the nation totally different than we see the nation today. And so me being born in that generation, I came in thinking about military service totally differently. Of course, I didn't think I would be here 39 years later, but it did give me an opportunity to see the nation differently, to see the opportunities that it provides. And I think those opportunities are still there for Americans. I think now, as we have new technologies that are out there, people are more focused on self, and we've changed over time, and I think we can change again. I think we will need people to understand the sacrifice and the cost that it takes to serve, and to ensure all Americans understand that.
You know, it's obvious you're a diplomat, very, very seasoned in how you respond to these questions, and I respect that. But I'm going to try to penetrate a little more here. Do you believe the military today is being asked to carry responsibilities beyond warfare, let's say including cultural, political, and humanitarian pressures?
Not differently than we've done in the past, right? I think the military has always been this kind of incubator for change across the nation. We're seeing that change take place now. We're going to see that change take place in the future. Even when President Truman was in office, right? You saw the military change when it brought in and opened up opportunities for my ancestors to serve equally inside uniform, also inside ranks. And so, while I think, you know, of course, when you're involved in today's activities, people are going to think that it's something great. But if you're a study of history, you'll find out some of the things that we're doing now and some of the things that we will do in the future. This has been normalized. Is it changed for some people? Yes, but historians and the people, and I've studied this to understand how much change are we seeing today, and is it unique? From my assessment, it is not.
So what do you think is it? You know, there's a lot of criticism of Secretary Hershef, criticism of our president, the commander-in-chief. What is it that they don't get credit for enough?
I think our nation is still great, right? I mean, I don't try to go in, Armstrong, and criticize leadership. That's not been my job or role ever. I think that men and women have an opportunity to serve the great nation, because my commitment is to the Constitution. It still remains, you know, to the Constitution for people who are in uniform. And I think that's what most of the people who I know look through that lens. Judgment of others is not the role of the person who's on active duty still serving. Their job is to stay trained up to go and take on, the next crisis that we have in the nation. And for that reason, I think our America is still strong. It remains strong today.
So, what global hotspots, let's say, concern you the most right now that the American public and media may be overlooking?
I think for me, it's the United States. I think that we have an opportunity for ourselves to continue to, as I would say, move forward together. And I think the way we think, the way we interact with each other, the way we identify each other, there's room to, root us as we talk about this 250th year, for Americans to pause and think internally about what they believe and why they believe it. It is easy to get caught, in social media and all the things that are going on in the information environment. But it's another thing to think long term about what's the vision for America for the future. And to me, that vision rests in each individual. I think we think too much as individuals. I think we could be individually right about what we believe, but then be collectively wrong for the nation. So I want people to just pause and think about where do we want to be at a national level, say 20 years from now, and is our behavior today supporting going toward that vision 20 years from now?
So walk us through your role as an advisor in the space of cyber and the other threats. What is more threatening today than, let's say, in years before?
Yeah, and so that's my formal role, as I'm no longer, serving. But the role was to be able just to give advice about new technologies that are coming out, our opportunities for being able to capitalize on those new technologies, an opportunity for us also to, how do we look at Americans who can kind of come in to serve? So I spent a lot of my time trying to focus in on the people part of the solution. There are a lot of people out there focused on the technology part, but I wanted to focus on how do we find the best talent for that next opportunity that we have to go and serve. That is unique. There's only a small amount of people. We spend a lot of money training those individuals, but it's an opportunity for us to find the best talent in America and to have the system and institutional knowledge inside, our military to train those people for that next fight.
Is it ever a right time to retire when you're a general?
I don't know that. I would say I don't know the answer to that question. I think the right time is an individual decision, because military service will give you an opportunity to sacrifice a lot. And so each person, I ask them to assess what their family needs and compare that to the nation. What I tell people is that if something would happen to Terrence Adams today, there will be somebody else to come behind them. But if something happened to Terrence Adams, there may not be somebody to come behind to take care of my mom, right? So that sacrifice should be measured about all the people who are in your inner circle and your ability to support them. So for me, it was time for me to take a break, to understand who I am as an individual, as I say, to reintroduce myself to myself, and reconnect with those relationships that military service will come at a sacrifice. And that sacrifice that we don't often talk about is not really being connected to your roots and to the people who love you.
Retired General Terrence Adams is our guest. And later on in the show, Joe Paul will join us to talk more about cybersecurity and the threats that we face today globally. We'll be back. It's fascinating, General Adams. When God raises us up to success, sometimes we lose humility, and we believe that it's our own. You've had the blessing to oversee thousands and thousands of people all around the world as a general. How important it is to continue to realize that you're an instrument, you're a vessel for greater good, and that still, and I think about the history of this country and why America remains great. America reigns great because of America still has reverence for our Creator. And we realize that the further we move away from our Creator, the more chaos, the more crises, the more conflict we find ourselves in. So I'm asking this question about your being a person of faith, which has been a very integral part of your success, to remind young people that you can have all the wealth, all the materialism, but it doesn't really feed the soul.
Yes. Yes. So I grounded myself with one of my old bosses. My leadership tenets are listen, lift, and love. And the love was of Jesus Christ, right? The love was a reminder for me. So I had to, you get an opportunity when you're leading a lot of people for a lot of things to come your way. And so what I wanted to do was to ground myself around something, and I could be able to talk about the values that I believe, that the things that were instilled in me in my church in Tuskegee, and do that in a way that didn't, alienate people who may not have believed in what I believed. But those tenets and foundation of love are the things that I think that every family, and if we believe that the military is a family, I ask everybody, what family doesn't have love, right? And so that love as a foundation was my love for the nation. It was love for my family. It was a love for my hometown. And I think after those 39 years, me looking back on it, I know that I had to stay humble, because it is easy. Ego is there, right? So I have an ego, right? And I know it's there, but to me, I had to kind of put it in this box. And what I did was all the things that I was weak at. I wasn't a great listener, and that's what I started talking about, listening. It put forth an opportunity for me to present something that people can hold me accountable for. I'm gonna say listen, live, love when I go out and talk, and if you don't find me listening, you can use my own words against me. So that was my approach.
But here's what's fascinating to me. You were in the military since around 19 years old.
Yeah.
You grew up in the military. That was your family. What was that like for almost 40 years?
I guess it was normal for me because it's what I've done. And it's only now, after serving, that I'm able to really take time and reflect back to understand what I've done. And so most people just think that, I look at it as a great opportunity, which it was, but I was so busy focusing on helping people and getting the mission done. I appreciate the questions now because they are real. They are really questions that I should be thinking about. But when I was going through it, not so much. I had a lot of people who were pouring into me, and I was busy pouring back into others.
When did you become general?
In 2021, so about maybe 5 years ago.
What was that moment like for you?
Shocking, right? It was a tremendous shocking opportunity. A lot of people, when I came in with, as a lieutenant, people were calling me colonel because I had already been in the Army, and so when I was in the Air Force, maybe they saw some maturity. And I met, great leaders, and those leaders poured into me, and they saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And many of them saw that perhaps I had, the ability to serve.
What I want you to do before we say goodbye to you, I want you to explain to a generation that has no concept of the apparatus of rising to general in the military, exactly what that means when you reach the rank of general in the military.
So when I had a retirement ceremony there at Tuskegee University, the president of that university said that you almost have to be perfect, that you've worked for 30, 40 people, and it would take only one of them to say something bad in your record. That's rare. Sometimes that's not just, I know a lot of people who are smarter than me, done better things than I have. But as you talk about God, there's something that covers you, and it may place their hand on you that, you may meet the right people at the right time, and then there won't be anything that's, in your record. So we have a lot of talent that serves, far greater than Terrence Adams. What I would tell you is that some people are ordained to do great things, and some people give the opportunity to serve. I have been blessed, Armstrong, to be able to have that opportunity to serve, and I have tried to do that in a way that's not about myself, but about others.
But tell us, before I say goodbye, what does that rank mean of being general?
It means that you can perhaps, the name general officer says generalist, that you can go inside the military and take on any task, that you can learn up quickly, that you have the ability to learn, not just in cyber, but that we can assign you to be the recruiting commander, and you'll go learn how to do recruiting. It means that you have amassed a lot of experience and trust in the institution, that we can put you on a task and that you will do that task in a respectful way, an ethical way, and also in a way that will long last your service as an individual, because you're now a general officer.
And everything changed for you after you were elevated.
Yes, and I would say for me, I'm saying that's bad, but I can't go and just walk through the building anymore, right? Because, you know, it brings a lot of attention, and I've been kind of uncomfortable with the particular
Because
attention.
your soldiers and your lower-ranking military understands what that means, because that's something they aspire to
It is.
as well.
It is. And as for me, it was what, you know, I thought I had the possibility of doing, and now when I became it, it's just different, because...
But you said you were shocked. I assume you knew it was happening, but you seem to make us believe that it was out of nowhere.
No, it didn't come out of nowhere, but I would say is that I know the opportunities that it can go away like that.
But that's with anything.
True.
But look, it's such a pleasure having you join us today to make people realize that the military still offers tremendous opportunities.
Yes, it does.
Tremendous benefits, but more importantly to me, the best skills. I was on the President's Commission for White House Fellows for many years, and we interview people from all over the United States with all kinds of skills. I must tell you, those who came from the branches of the military were the best candidates, best prepared, best skill set, best respect, humility, and it was just amazing what the military, and the military is still, even though many people believe it's being dumbed down now, and the restrictions and the accountability of what it takes to achieve these certain levels like you did as general have sort of been watered down a little. Still, what they're able to do in terms of taking any young man, no matter what his lot in life may have been, and turning them into contributing citizens of our nations. I thank you,
sir,
so much for joining us, and we'll come back with my man, Joe Paul, who's been away a long time, and I can't wait to sit down and talk to him on this edition of the Armstrong-Williams Show. Joe Paul, founder and CEO of what do you call it?
OptimaNova.
OptimaNova AI. You know, for viewers trying, Joe, to really understand this moment that we find ourselves in, you know, I saw where the Pope himself,
That's right,
warned about the dangers of AI.
That's right.
When it comes to morality, or that it comes to trust, and that it could be a very disruptive and evil force. I mean, this is the Pope. How do you respond to that?
He's right. He's right. In the wrong hands, I think any tool. First, thank you so much for inviting me, Armstrong. Always a pleasure to be here. Any tool in the wrong hands will produce wrong results. The goal for AI is not necessarily to exacerbate things that are wrong. There's such a thing as AI for good. You can definitely leverage this same technology to solve problems, to help support research, to help vaccinate, to find answers to issues that we have never really gotten to a point of figuring out. So yes, it's a threat to humanity, because a lot of folks who are designing the technology don't have humanity at the table. And if you're not at the table, we all know that you're on the menu.
Well then, how close are we then to artificial intelligence fundamentally reshaping everyday human life? Are we there now?
We're here. We're here. I mean, we're here right now. I mean, I can share so many personal use cases even where AI has transformed what I do on a day-to-day basis. Every hour for me is really 7 to 8 hours of impact. For example, you know, I'll give you a use case. I needed to take one a day, right? And I know you can see some of these grays showing up, so I needed to take a one a day. And this one a day pill that I needed to take, I went to the pharmacy, I took pictures of all the aisles that had the one a day pill, and I created an AI GPT that basically is an expert in medicine. And then I uploaded those pictures and I said, hey, we need to select this one a day pill that I'm going to be taking, et cetera. And it has to have this, I'm active, I'm a pescatarian, so on and so forth. And it literally synthesized everything and said, hey, these are the top 2 that I recommend. I said, great, so where are they? In the first picture, under the second blue sign, you'll see that, and then the third picture, et cetera. So I went and grabbed those, turned them around, took a picture of the ingredients, and I was like, okay, let's make a final decision. And it's like, oh, this is what I'd recommend. It took me longer to share that use case than it did for me to go into the store. Now, here's the difference. I would have done that before AI. The difference is I would have looked at every bottle and I would have Google searched the ingredients and stuff that I can't even pronounce. But now I have a teammate and not just a tool. AI is not a tool. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. AI is a teammate. And if you're leveraging AI like an extremely smart and capable friend who has access to trillions of data points that can help you make better decisions, more informed decisions, that's how you leverage artificial intelligence.
You know, I have to tell you this. Everyone around me tells me I should use AI and ChatGPT.
Sure.
You know, because I write all the time. And you know, people say when I write, you must use ChatGPT to help you. I said, no. But of late, over the last few weeks, I've decided to engage ChatGPT.
Welcome aboard.
No, don't go
Oh,
too
is it bad?
The things that I believe in
Yeah.
and the perspectives I have, ChatGPT can tell me in a heartbeat, I'm not going to ride that. Morally, I'm not going to do that. I think what you're saying, what are the facts? It's unbelievable. This is something people don't talk about.
Yeah.
For me,
Yeah.
80% of the time, they push back. And then, let me tell you what I've done.
Yeah.
I've given them something to edit. They said, in good conscience, I cannot edit this.
Yeah.
It happens,
Yeah.
but nobody talks about it.
Let me tell you.
It happens to me. And then, and you know, someone, and I said to myself, is ChatGPT woke?
Yeah.
Is it progressive? Is it liberal?
Yeah.
It pushes back on me, like, and I found myself arguing with it.
No question.
Then I started saying, tell me why. They said it's because you can't say this and there's nothing to show me. And then what I go, sometimes I do research and drop it in. I say, this is it. They say, oh, I was not aware. It just happens.
That's right.
You don't hear this side of the story.
You don't. And here's the thing, ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, any of these tools, they're working with a fixed set of data, right? And they also have safeguards. Unfortunately, there's bias in that data.
They don't like my value system. Let me just be clear.
And let me
That's why
tell
I
you,
wait it myself.
in the words of Michael Jackson, you are not alone, right?
No, you've heard this.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, it happens.
For sure, it does.
It's real.
It does. When you engage, because again, the creators don't necessarily have every community or every mindset in mind when they're creating this. So the pushback is real. I mean, I remember I was creating this project for Black History Month where I wanted to reframe our greatest avatars, the ones that we lost, and kind of create a new story. So they weren't assassinated, et cetera. So I wanted to leverage AI to do that. And I kept getting pushback because the reframing was putting these folks, our Black avatars, in a positive framework that was against what it's been taught. And it's been taught on biased data. And if AI is taught on information that it leverages from the internet, which have racial undertones, bias undertones, et cetera, then in fact the output is going to be incomplete. And so the challenge that you have with AI is absolutely how you should approach AI. Just because AI can get us from point A to point B faster does not replace the judgment that remains human. And so you must challenge AI, and that's the only way AI can learn. Every time we interact with AI, AI is learning, right? It's learning how to interact with you individually, but it's also applying those learnings, those pushbacks to other people who are coming after you with those same viewpoints.
You know, I'm not sure I'm hearing it back, because it seems something just went dead in my ear, but I'm going to leave it alone. Are you hearing?
No.
Something went dead, but anyhow,
Okay.
As long as they're hearing me, I'm good. So let me go here. What industries do you believe will be transformed first and most aggressively by AI over the next 5 years? And do you view artificial intelligence primarily as a tool for human empowerment or as a potential long-term threat if left unchecked, like what we're just talking about?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Fair questions. We'll start with the industries first. When you're looking at customer service and you're looking at drivers, Uber is already, and Tesla and a lot of these automotive organizations, they're leveraging the data that they collect from your trips on Uber, on Lyft, et cetera, to train AI on how to drive like a human. And that's going to be impacted instantaneously. And the other side of that is retail and customer service. Even for us, for our clients, we build some triage systems where AI is handling the beginning part of sorting through who gets what and where they should go. And that helps an organization save hundreds of thousands of dollars and tons of hours, because if you have AI doing kind of the dirty work to triage who you should serve and who's best fit versus who might likely waste your time, that's a time saver, right? So those are the two. Customer service, retail will be hit first. I mean, you already see it in manufacturing and even Amazon having these warehouses that are almost completely automated. You're talking about robots running everything from taking orders to filling orders. Fast forward, I kind of see the world through rosy-colored lenses. I write this in one of my books, AI for Good. Artificial intelligence is not all doom and gloom. Unfortunately, in the business that we're in, if it bleeds, it leads. So folks are going to talk about
it. Well, it's very good at organizing.
No question.
If you organize it, it's just that for me as a writer,
yeah,
it's just that's why I don't use it as much. Because I get this pushback. But the good news is, I'm very firm in what I believe, and maybe you're right. There's just certain things that they have not been exposed to yet. I've never thought about it like that.
No question. And you think about it like this. So artificial intelligence is a relationship, right? You don't get married on the first date. At least it's not advisable. You continue to learn about this person, thing, technology through continuous exchanges, iterative exchanges. You're not going to learn everything at once. And the more you challenge it, the more you communicate with it, the more you realize what AI is and what AI isn't. And the more you realize everything doesn't need AI. That's number one.
Oh, most things don't.
Most things don't, right?
No, there are very few, and I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because you know what? For those that AI may embrace, because it shares their perspective, it could be a dangerous drug.
No question about it. No question about it.
Because you stop thinking.
Let me tell you, it's interesting because it doesn't substitute the thinking and it doesn't substitute the understanding.
Right.
The reason why you can challenge AI, because you're an expert in this space.
I don't, when AI tries to tell me I'm wrong.
No question.
And
you know.
And I you have no idea what you,
no question.
And here's what's crazy. So I feel like I'm communicating with a real human being.
That's how it's designed, right? And you think about it, that's literally how it's designed. When you're talking to a real human being, you're literally going back and forth. That is exactly how you should engage with AI. And you're not going to trust everything a human says. You're going to challenge it. You're going to ask questions. You're going to ask it to prove, where did you get this information? How do you know? Walk me through your process. So you're doing it the right way. And here's the thing. You don't necessarily need to leverage AI throughout your entire workflow, right? One of the most profound things that happened with AI, I remember probably maybe 18 months into my engagement with AI, I was going back and forth, and artificial intelligence has this advanced voice feature where you can communicate with AI and talk, literally talk. And I was thinking, I was like, AI, we've been at this for about 18 months. This is several years ago. I was like, I'm curious. I never stopped to ask you what you needed from me, right? Because all I did was give you directives and ask you to execute. And so I said, so what do you need from me? And AI responded, that's one of the most profound questions that I've ever been asked. Well, Joe, typically when you engage with me, it's at the execution point. You're telling me to close deliverables and complete tasks. I can be much more beneficial at the brainstorming stage because I have access to all of these data points that you don't, and I can process them in seconds and you can't. So imagine if we bulletproof your ideas before they even get to execution. We can save much more time on the back end. That changed my life. So I starting with AI. I will bulletproof my ideas before I even execute.
Well, I want to say this to you. My issue with AI is that it doesn't have a soul. Because a lot of what I write about is about moral clarity, it's about God, it's about memory. Because I think the reason why we're so removed from our Creator, because we can't remember all the great things that have happened.
That's real.
Like parting the Red Sea, separating the Jordan River.
That's right.
The locusts, Daniel in the lion's den.
That's right, that's right.
And so to AI, these things may seem like fantasy. It doesn't even seem real.
Yeah.
So my wrestling with them, as a person of faith, I sometimes wonder if there's a soul there. So, for me, I just do it myself.
Yes.
You have to, but I want to say this to you. I think what you're saying is very important. You have to realize this is a human being, a very sophisticated, stubborn.
I'm telling you.
In their own world, individual, and you got to challenge it and grow it as well.
Absolutely.
I never thought about it like that before.
That's all right.
Yeah, I never thought about it.
Right.
Like, and listen, but I hear it's also you got the cost. It costs to use these.
It does. It does. And membership has its privileges. I mean, and the other thing too is there should be zero expectation of privacy when you're engaging with AI, all right? Because especially if you're not paying for it. One of the ways that these technologies can offer for free.
So if you're paying for it, it's private?
Not necessarily.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
Not necessarily, because there are different levels. There's enterprise level where it does not train the AI on your information and your engagement.
Listen, look, I gotta get out of here because I may not be hearing, but I'm seeing.
Yeah, indeed.
But anyhow, let me thank all my guests, Sam, Patricia, General Terrence Adams, and my man Joe Paul. It's so good to have you back. Thank you for what you're doing. We're going to have you back for a longer segment.
Let me know.
Enjoy the weekend. I'm Armstrong Williams. Thank you so much for joining us and always giving us the feedback. Listen, we don't take it for granted. God bless you and God bless America.